Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson which is all about dodging and burning your black and white images. Now, you may have heard of dodging and burning before, but you may also have wondered why you need to do it. Well, if we make a standard black and white conversion, we could end up with something looking like this. Pretty flat, pretty dull, not really worth the bother. Now, a bit of dodging and burning, however, on exactly the same image will bring you something like this. Much more drama, much more bite, much more contrast, and suddenly we've got something that's maybe worth going in our portfolio, if not on the wall. So all dodging and burning does is adds more contrast to an image, makes the darker bits darker still, and makes the lighter bits lighter still, to really give your black and white print a bit of extra flavour. Now, we're going to go through the stages of dodging and burning, including some of the quick ways to dodge and burn, which involves making some contrast changes using the levels palette to selected areas of the image. So let's go back to the start, back to our colour image, and see where we're going to go. We'll open this one up. It's called Hunstanton JPEG. That's on the disk. And we've got a reasonable sort of colour picture with a sky. It's not a great sky, but it's a sky with potential. And I think that's going to work better in mono. So what we need to do first and foremost is convert it into black and white. Now, for our mono conversion, I'm going to pick and that grey layer becomes invisible. Now what we're going to do is just duplicate that, and we can do that really quickly by just hitting Ctrl and J. That gives us another overlay called Layer 1 Copy. What we're going to do now is call the first layer, Layer 1 here, we're going to call that Burn, and then the one above it, double click on that, and we're going to call that one, you guessed it, Dodge. Now all we have to do is pick up our brush tool, there it is there, and we're going to select a fairly large brush, let's see, something like that should do, 700 pixels, and we're going to pick black as our foreground colour. We want that to be black, so we're just going to click on this icon here, which sets the default foreground and background colour. Once we have that, we click on the burn layer, and if we paint black into the burn layer, we're going to darken down the shadows in our image. The opacity setting, we want that to about 30%, that's enough. So we'll just crank that up to 30, and then we can just paint into the image. And you see there, the darker bits are going darker still. And we can kind of work on various areas of the image to darken down those parts. Now we can thicken that up even more if we want to. And once we're happy with the burning we've done, we can then move to some dodging.